Covington Community Church, high atop the great city of Covington, uh, 2 floors up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast today. We have an unusual podcast, and I have my brilliant guest, as always, Miracle Mike. And we're going to be Siskel and Ebert tonight, today,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Yeah. There's interesting things coming out movie wise, and Disclosure Day was definitely one of them. Interesting movie. Uh, a lot of interest in the premises. This these uh, he opens whole bunch of cans of worms, only cosmetically. But still they're out there, and the nature of man, the nature of the world, the nature of extraterrestrials,
Wow.
and of course his favorite, the nature of the government.
Wow. That was really good. And I want to say it definitely click some boxes for conspiratorial theories. And so it's kind of interesting because you saw the movie first, and then you said, Rod, go see the movie. And so I did. I downloaded it yesterday and took a look
Yeah,
at it. And it's a lot different from some of his other stuff,
yeah, I was
from
expecting
E.T. and
Close
Raiders.
Encounters or
Yeah.
another Indiana Jones, something good. But
Yeah. Well, we'll try not to do many spoiler alerts. And so if you haven't seen the movie, it is interesting, but it's different, and I won't say, it's good or bad in that way. I mean, it's a movie. It's
yeah,
supposed to be entertaining and it's supposed to disclose something to us. And,
yeah,
but the topic is really interesting in light of UAVs, world events, UFOs for those of us that, came from an earlier labeling period,
oh yeah,
man. Welcome to Alphabet Soup, right?
absolutely. We
Well,
have
let me dive right in, Mike, to pretty much our opening setup for it. So, Steven Spielberg's movie Disclosure was released June last month of 2026. It's his first event film in a long time. So, kind of interesting because I wouldn't have thought about it as an event film in that way. But it stars Emily Blunt, Josh O'Connor, and Colin Firth. And it's built around the premise that there's a government shadow agency that's basically hiding proof of UAPs and UFOs. And so, and that we've been visited from non human entities since at least the Nixon administration. And we'll kind of deep dive a little bit of that, and we'll talk about the Nixon thing. And I would say that was interesting that the film kind of brought it up. But there's one whistleblower. He's finally forced to tell the truth in the open, and it lands at a moment of UAP disclosure as a live topic event. It's going to be publicized all over the world. That's not really a spoiler thing, but it's going to be disclosed. And so that's kind of the drama. Congress, the culture, everybody's interested in the topics of UFOs, and
yeah,
it's no wonder that we're not going to see some things like this. But Spielberg, he kind of spent his career in movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I remember seeing that. It was one of my mom's favorite movies. And E.T., of course, which gave a really nice, soft view, and Reese's as
hmm
well, a nice, soft view of aliens and War of the Worlds. And I got to say, Raiders of the Lost Ark, because it also had
that's right.
Nazis and UFOs. Well, I mean, that's like a popcorn movie like you read about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
Dr. Jones.
uh, so the critics said that this might have been a little bit closer to maybe a spiritual reference, a little bit of spirituality here,
Yeah,
maybe
there's
more than spectacle.
yeah, that's the thing. If you're up on the things of God and you see this movie, you'll see three big themes running through the movie. One is that he picks at the nature of man, and one is that he is telling a story, and he is basically telling the Old Testament traditional Jewish view of the developments leading to the Messiah. And then, you know, he throws in a splash of Matthew. You know, that's the thing. This could have been called Evangelism Day because that's basically what the disclosure was. The aliens going, tell the people about us to the minions that he was influencing. And, you know, the evil government agency was trying to stop them from telling the people. And of course, there's a huge, it's a central theme of the movie, you know, which is funny because our government has been shown to act as bad as the fake government in the film. And
That's funny how that
have
came
done
out.
even worse.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the guy kidnapped, renditioned, tortured, and even killed a few of these people who had been contacted by the aliens. And he also broke every law around, you know, the Fourth Amendment and stuff. He, you know, he was clearly without accountability or restraint. And then he gets blasphemous right in the middle of the movie.
Wow.
You know, I mean, one of the spiritual themes, right, which couldn't be too obvious, except the girl is an ex-nun and they hide at a nunnery. So a convent, you know, it's like, interesting. What's going on with that?
Kind of reminds me of some other movies like Monty Python.
Yeah. Yeah. Nuns on the Run. Sister Act.
So the movie was closer to spirituality than maybe, and not just spectacle, and there was some of that too. And so, you know, it's a fun movie, but interesting because it has kind of a darker side. It's revealing something to us. And so today we're kind of going to take a look at, hey, maybe what does some scripture say about this? And not only, you know, our modern view of UFOs, UAPs, alien abduction, all of that's covered in the movie and talked about in some way. And I want to say they had a kinder view. I want to say they kind of had a limited view too, I think, for most people. A lot of the stuff that we've seen in the past in just different movies and things, that was kind of not really talked about or dealt with. So you only get kind of a single view perspective. And I'm going to say that was kind of interesting. I think a lot of people, some people might have come away disappointed, of course, with kind of the movie's point. So Spielberg said that this was his most spiritual movie, basically. Critics noted that it reaches for hope, empathy, and even a type of reverence, especially for the topic and for aliens. So in the story, it borrows the shape of a religious longing, really without its substance, because God isn't really, he's overtly mentioned and the references are made to him, but the hope is really someplace else, isn't it? And
Yeah, there's a big piece missing. You know, they got the framework, but they don't have any of the substance. And,
yeah,
you can build a framework for many things.
the hope was still elusive. It wasn't really addressed, was it? The hope of disclosure kind of leaves you flat a little bit, doesn't it? It's like,
yeah.
well, what do you
kind
do
of
with
like,
that?
Yeah, kind of like what actually happened, you know, in Matthew. But you know, that's the thing. There is very little disclosure in the movie, despite the name. It's a drama. It's focused on these characters.
I thought they did a really good job at portraying the depth of the characters.
I mean, the alien only gets like 4 lines of dialogue, and all those were clicks and pops.
Man. Really good, man. That's a great imitation, Mike.
Good alien imitation.
Good alien, man.
But yeah, you know, there was several pieces of this film. You look at it, you're like, You know, I recognized the framework of the Old Testament. I recognized the framework of evangelism. I recognized the opposition, you know, because of course the antagonist has to get blasphemous in the middle of the movie, like if it wasn't a big enough hint before.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's elements of the X-Men in there.
Yeah.
I started calling the bad guy Magneto.
Oh, Magneto. There you
Started
go.
calling his little friend who was trying to secretly help the contactees, whatever they're called. You know, I started calling him Charles Xavier.
Yeah.
And I started referring to the people who had been contacted by the aliens as mutants. You know, it works if you totally just put the X-Men shell on these guys. You have Magneto and Charles Xavier trying to save mutants who have just discovered their mutant abilities.
Wow.
I mean, this plot of X-Men 1 and X-Men 2 and that TV series a few years ago.
It did have some of those elements, actually. I thought the way they dealt with alien abduction was kind of interesting, and we'll kind of talk about that and kind of some of how that was communicated through the movie. But it sort of had a sense of transcendence without God. That the illusion was, or the transcendence was, that we're transcending now to a different kind of being. And even, when you look at maybe the nuns and the Mother Superior and how her take on that was, she wasn't really thrown by it. I want to say, I don't know that the church is really thrown by. We kind of have our own answers toward it, which really weren't addressed either in the movie. We
Yeah,
kind
well,
of have our own idea of what alien life, and actually the Bible's kind of clear. There are other celestial beings, and there's a lot of them. And
yeah.
we're not really thrown by the concept.
Yeah, there's that mathematical. I can't remember what it's called now, but I'm sure somebody out there will help me out. That the mathematical formula that you do. There's so many planets and so many solar systems, and of those, so many are inhabitable. Of those, so many are this old, and they should be able to produce something like Earth. Statistically, there should be 300 Earths out there.
That's interesting because there is a term for that, and I just heard it the other day.
Yeah.
And that there should be other life. However, it turns out we're an anomaly. We don't know that there is other human life. And I heard Avi Loeb talk about it, actually.
Yeah,
The
well,
concept of the theory of why we don't see other life. And it's funny because alien life isn't necessarily human life, although it may be intelligent life. But the Bible says all along, oh yeah, there's plenty of intelligent life. As a matter of fact, it may be way more intelligent. As a matter of fact, one of the first encounters humanity has with some other form of sentient life, it doesn't turn out so good. As a matter of
yeah.
fact, one is innocent, one is kind of a rube, the other's very, very subtle, very astute.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it didn't work out so well for humanity. And I would say the movie doesn't really address things like that.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
They seem to have had a focus. They go towards their focus. I mean, the focus is basically the end of the movie, and without giving it away, as a lot happens in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So even if you find it tedious, fast forward to the last 10 minutes. You're going to want to see it. But there is. They
The movie
pull out
is
all these
exciting.
tabs, and then they just leave them there. Like,
Yeah.
they pull them halfway out and stop. And,
Yeah.
it's like a writer with ADHD, start developing a story and then move on to the next thing unexplainedly.
Yeah.
So the whole the whole ex-nun thing, despite being incidental to the plot, really didn't go anywhere. The Emily Blunt and her boyfriend thing, he went off and had a latte. I don't know what happened to him.
Man.
He was way
yeah.
too casual about the whole thing. It's like,
Yeah.
well, if my wife started changing into another person and she could speak all of a sudden Korean and Russian, never having learned a word of it her whole life, I'm going to say there's something wrong.
I thought the disclosure in the plant, I thought that was kind of interesting too. We could talk about that more, as we start to unpack this. But there's kind of a man-woman scenario, so it has, I want to say, maybe a Genesis kind of feel. You have,
The pairs, absolutely.
yeah, you have a pair of humans that have a message for the rest of the human race. And I thought, isn't that interesting? They would have that, yet it doesn't really have the direct God reference. I thought most of the religious content, as far as spirituality, from a faith perspective, was really drawn more toward the Catholic Church, and not as a whole, but the nunnery kind of represents
Yeah.
basically the Christian thought or Christian idea. And I want to say other faiths or other things, and for that matter, Judaism, it really wasn't explored.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I want to say those for people of those faiths. Well, if you're not Catholic, you're still going to be wondering.
Yeah, and for folks who go out and see this movie and they're not comfortable with the God thing, you know, they directly quote from the gospel in the middle of the film. So
That's interesting.
yeah,
Definitely has a strong spirituality or faith element. So I'm going to talk about maybe some of the controversy as far as conspiratorial agencies. And so the film
mhm,
mentions the agency Wardex. And I
yep,
think you can think of a lot of different kinds of, excuse me, covert kind of quasi, defense contractors or
oh
stuff that could
yeah,
fit that bill. They mention one,
yeah. Well,
and
we're
it,
both in hope and horror that our government is that proficient.
yeah,
That they have the capability to do these things and that they're using it wisely, hopefully. But and it's like, how much of this is today plausible? That's the thing with Close Encounters.
yeah.
Close Encounters use the fabric of everyday life in Indiana
Yeah, I know. I love being
to,
from Indiana for that reason.
you
Yeah,
know,
I know it was amazing. Devil's Tower. Nobody can ever look
yeah,
at it the same.
yeah, and
It had, and I want to say it checked a lot of boxes too. But
yeah,
overall, it was a fun movie. And the
yeah,
last 10 minutes of that movie, that was like, wow. And who could forget the song, do, do,
yeah,
do, do, do. Yeah. So, I mean, it had some really cool elements. It left you feeling good. You wanted to buy more popcorn after the movie, but
hmm,
Um, yeah, but this was a lot different from that.
yeah,
So this Wardex organization has been hiding the truth for decades. And again, I don't want to reveal too much about the movie because I want people to actually see it. And so, like a lot of government agencies or a lot of contractors, it's in the good of the public interest. And so that
of
was kind of the
course,
theme behind that.
yeah,
Ephesians 6:12 is kind of interesting. I think for most people of faith who would look at that particular scripture, it says this that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but it's against powers, principalities, and powers in the dark world. And I find that interesting, that you would see a struggle both physically and spiritually because there's certainly a struggle in the movie of releasing their truth. And so this idea of secrecy, this cloaking, we
hmm,
have to keep people not knowing this information. And so it's institutionally secret. And so,
hmm.
it can be spiritual as well as political.
Yeah,
And
we just saw that not too long ago. People, with the with the taking the fifth and all,
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no accounting for that.
there was
Yeah.
there was a lot of
You can't
known
handle the truth.
information that was correct that was kept from the American public for whatever reason, and there were a lot of people that were, you know, people died, based on the government suppressing information. So that's why everybody's mad, at Mr. Fifth Amendment guy. That's probably why he took the fifth, because
It's
that blood's on his
It's
hands.
funny because you still can't get, I mean, we don't
Yeah.
know much about the Kennedy assassination, Bay of Pigs. I mean, we know what the narrative is, we know what we learned in school, but as far as being released from the government, we don't. And a lot of secrecy. And it references a situation which I'd heard was true, and I'd known about it for a while, that Nixon took a celebrity back in the 70s. I think 1973 is the time frame when it happened, to visit alien bodies. And it talks about Eisenhower, et cetera, that he also was aware that there were UFOs or
Mm-hmm.
there were aliens, and he would have been around in the Roswell days, and that really kicked off a lot of stuff. However, it was said that Nixon took, it was Jackie Gleason actually, he took Jackie Gleason, a celebrity at the time. They called him a '50s celebrity, but it was Gleason. That's how the story went. You
Yep.
know,
Our
Jack.
generation knows him as Sheriff Buford T.
Yeah, sure.
Justice.
Yeah, that's it. Or from the Honeymooners, Ralph Cramden.
Yep.
But he took Jackie Gleason to basically witness the bodies of the aliens. And after that, they kind of denied presidential access, because these
Mm-hmm.
guys are elected. They're not really, they're going to be in and out of office. So at some point, their opinion or their access to things doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
some said that it was from his presidency on, it was not permitted. And of course, Nixon was the vice president of Eisenhower. So, kind of interesting. He had a long run in government, not to mention he was
Oh
a
yeah.
two-term president until he was impeached. But yeah, interesting. But there were other presidents. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot,
Mm.
but there were other presidents that said they'd do the full-on disclosure, and Bill Clinton was one of them as well. When he gets in, when he gets into office, he's going to disclose UFOs, and I think Carter was also on the hook for that. Uh, Jerry Ford, I don't think that was
Yep.
a topic that he would have been interested. He was a Detroit guy, so he was interested in other kinds of crafts and
Hmm.
vehicles. But President Trump may be the president of disclosure, and of any president, he's probably released the most amount of information, and maybe on his watch. Many people have said that maybe there was a government narrative underneath this. Maybe you'll speak to that a little bit. There was a government, oftentimes you'll see the government release things, then it happens and for real. And so there was some talk about that, but the spiritual and the political, you kind of see them meet, in some of the history, and that was actually real history that was portrayed in the movie.
Yeah, that's what makes a great story is you use elements from life, to
That's
do it.
good.
Lots of look at that huge. It became huge. It was basically the honorary movie of 250, The Patriot.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a whole telling of a section of pre-Revolutionary War, colonists versus British people. That horses and all of that, and burning farms. But that all happened way back then, and so it's not a problem. Close Encounters. He kept everything very, very close to reality. You know, except I think having owned one of those Ford station wagons, it's not that good.
Wow.
If he drove it across a farm and then ran down a fence with it, it would be bellowing oil by the side of the road, belching smoke.
There's a certain amount of reality, right?
Yep, I'm like, that car didn't break down. This movie is imaginary. But yeah, there's so much. I mean, the focus was on this guy in Indiana and his life falling apart after he was contacted by the aliens.
So now we're talking about
And
Close Encounters of the
yeah,
Third Kind.
and
Yeah, Richard
the
Dreyfuss.
thing was his life was relatively normal. They lived in a normal place. They did normal things.
Terry Garr was his wife.
Yep.
She freaked out.
That's right. And it's funny because in that movie, the Ten Commandments was, they had it on the
Was
screen.
it playing in the background?
Yes.
There's our faith element. There's the Hebrew element from Spielberg.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of funny. But that movie was very focused on the people and their struggles and their involvement. And it was, they intersected with the government where they needed to, but it was about the aliens reaching out to regular folks, telling them where to meet them, and then, those folks either being able to get there or not. And the government, of course, puts on a big whole fake railroad thing. You know, in this movie, he used the same concept. The aliens called ordinary people just living their ordinary lives, and you know, not unlike somebody else who called ordinary people to go
Wow.
deliver a message.
Wow.
You know, there's your Matthew connection, by the way.
Wow.
But
So there was a message for humanity that was in
yeah,
there somewhere.
yeah, the aliens decided they had a message. That's why they turned on the kids.
It's funny that we don't think of God as being the ultimate extraterrestrial because he's not from here.
Yeah,
And he
and
gives a message to humanity that is a part of our earth and part of our origin. And it's deep, kind of like in the movie. The
hmm
message comes from way back.
yeah,
So it's not a new message. And
exactly. And everybody who knows, you know exactly what we're talking about because it couldn't be more obvious.
yeah,
I mean, what could be more obvious is what was with that hand trowel they got from Space Depot that lit up.
yeah.
Next time I'm doing any masonry, I want to light up a hand trowel too.
A light of hand trowel. That was good. I want to stay on the history thing because there were some other things that were mentioned too. And so it was suggested, I'm not sure, but that there was actual footage from Roswell as part of the movie.
Yeah, yeah. There were a couple of pictures shown from Roswell. It was some of the battered UFO stuff, and one picture where it looks like there's one of the aliens laying there, but you can't really tell. But yeah, I was wondering myself, had those been released? Like, is this something that is out there for people to see? And you know, there's been a lot of modern disclosures lately this year, and most of them are, Navy pilots saw this mini black blob in the sky flying around really fast, and that was about it. I mean,
Yeah, it's been relatively brief. It's funny because other countries and other groups, they have their own UFO stories, and this story is really told from the American perspective, as if we hold all the cards for disclosure. But for every government, ancient cultures, and you can see in art and literature the mention of UFO craft. I mean, you can see it in some very famous paintings worldwide. Um, you can see evidence of UFOs, and you can even quote find it in hieroglyphics and in ancient sculpture as well.
yeah, there's a lot. Even
The
some
movie doesn't
people,
touch any of that really.
some people even argue the Mona Lisa has a UFO in the background.
Man, I think she
Uh,
looks a little alien
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, that takes us all the way back to podcast 4.
That's right, but she is from Italy, so
Yeah,
the Mona
yeah.
Lisa. So
So there's been a lot of, imagination. I mean, the entire sci-fi industry is predicated on this.
I thought for covering the whole genre of UFOs and some of those things, it doesn't really reveal much, but it really only tells it from a Western perspective. And you see glimpses of people around the world in other languages looking at the disclosure as if we hold the key to it somehow.
Yeah,
That American culture or media,
yeah. That's our
or our news,
that's our thing. I mean,
it is.
I'd like to say I'm an American. If it came down on America, it's ours. We own
Wow.
it.
It's interesting because the British press and the British government have released quite a few things as well.
Yeah,
And
they've had quite a bit of UFO
yeah,
stuff going
they've
in
had their own
central
share.
England. They could give Roswell a run for the money.
That's right. And so the movie doesn't really cover that, but we seem to be the curators of the message or the story of
Hmm
UAPs, and so I thought that was kind of interesting that it didn't go too far back, but it really went to Roswell. And it
Yeah,
kind of stopped there, but the story actually goes much deeper. Biblically, it goes all the way back to, Genesis chapters 2, 3, Genesis chapter 6. and
Yeah.
even the Book of Enoch, which we have talked about
Mm-hmm.
as well. So, I mean, it goes back in biblical history, or if you want to say human history, it goes back much farther. And people have seen UFOs, UAPs for pretty much all throughout recorded human history.
Yeah. Yeah. For folks who watch streaming, at my house, we watch a lot of streaming. Usually it's the museum channel or the UFO channel. And the UFO channel, they have a lot of documentaries and such where they're going back and going, this weird structure was built in the 1300s, or this strange dialect appears on this cave wall, or whatever it was. Or the Aztecs, very they did a lot of art, right? They were good at sports. They could build things. They used to draw pictures, and they had stories to match it. They did this. One of their Aztec gods, their bird god. There is this one picture showing him clearly piloting a ship. You know that he's got his bird costume on, and he's off in his ship, going wherever. And um, he's not the only one. I mean, we've seen culture after culture after culture have these common touch points going into the past. And there is so much that is just left out there, left open, probably because of people's tendency to fill in the blanks with their own imagination. But, there's a lot of undeveloped material that,
There was
is out
kind of a
there.
lot on the floor still, and I think
Yep.
when it comes to the topic, inquiring minds want to know. They want to know a lot more. 2 Corinthians 11:14 is a warning from Paul, and he says, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. If beings claim to be advanced or enlightened, I want to say that was the whole role of Satan or the serpent in the garden, was to enlighten Adam and Eve. And Lucifer, it basically means the enlightened one. And so he was the one who was going to give human beings knowledge that would take them to godlike status. And there's certainly those elements that are inside the movie, and some of the characters that come up to the main character, Emily Blunt, the actress. They come up to her and they almost want to worship her as the messenger, the person that carries this message. And I thought that was kind of interesting as well because
Yeah.
of who she represents. And it's kind of a tip to the gods of the past. I thought that was interesting. But, uh, but so what do you think about um, aliens, or aliens portrayed being, maybe having another kind of message of anti-enlightenment?
Mm.
Paul's warning in
Well,
Second Corinthians.
yeah, there's two schools of thought out there. One is that aliens are all happy, nice people. They just want to come down and share their happy niceness, and
They're all benevolent.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all going to be good.
and it's all evolved high knowledge society, blah blah blah. There's the other school of thought that says aliens have seen Earth's communication transmissions, and when they fly by, they lock their doors. But
Man.
I mean, Independence Day was made on the other one, so was Battle Los Angeles. Those
Yeah.
aliens showed up, and they are not friendly. They're not nice.
Kill the humans.
They just want to either they want our planet, so they're going to wipe us out, or they want to harvest people like V.
Yeah, so there's a mix in the storyline for humanity, you know, good aliens versus bad aliens. And after all, what are they? And so the movie doesn't really address those things. It doesn't say where they're from.
Yeah, that's lazy writing. I mean,
Yeah,
because when you want to get into that, you're going to have to construct an entire anthropology.
that was one of the criticisms of the movie, was that it wasn't that the plot line was weak, but that the screenplay it didn't address some of those
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that the
They've left
screenplay
a
was
lot of.
weak.
They pulled out a lot of tabs, and then they just left them hanging.
I don't mean to sound like a movie critic, but
Yeah,
but it really was. There was a lot of things I think for the genre and people want to know, and the hype of it. You kind of got a different impression of what the story was going to be. That you're going to get this full disclosure, and whether governments would be on board. But it basically comes down to
yeah,
one press person, who basically, hacks and works their quote magic, in the studio and is able to release it globally. And
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that was interesting. They had, you know, for satellite nerds out there, I'm still asking myself how they were in America somewhere and they beamed it to Galaxy 12.
yeah, it's funny
Because what's
because
61.5 degrees east among friends,
yeah,
not the other side of the planet or anything.
yeah. No, that was kind of fanciful. But I want to say it works a lot like that. People broadcast and beam and connect things
Yeah. Yeah, well,
from studio to studio.
these days you don't open a satellite channel, you open an IP stream.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of interesting,
Yeah.
some of that perspective. So, yeah, um, disclosed publicly, but I want to say, on the spiritual side, the enemy certainly has a message for humanity that he wants to get out, and a he will appear to be benevolent to humanity.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought the bad guy, which
Colin Firth,
they really did a bad job covering up his satanic tendencies, whatever you want to call them.
wow.
They, I mean, he goes through the movie. He is without restraint, as you can tell. I mean, he just does whatever
This is the
he
leader
feels
of,
like.
or the
Yeah,
the one of keeping the secrets for 30
yeah,
something years
yeah.
from
The,
Wardex.
the leader, the bad guy,
Yeah.
the antagonist. He's the one who wants to collect and capture these people so that he can
Yeah.
take them apart and figures
Guilty
out.
of dissection, which
Yeah,
I thought was interesting. That was alien dissection, which was part of some of the early days of the UFO
yeah.
crashes, which
I,
I want to say is fairly well documented in UFO literature.
yeah. I know it's kind of funny too because they even pay a little bit of lip service to that concept. It's like,
Those
yeah,
poor
we
aliens,
know
man,
your
they were
friends crashed on our planet and we killed them, but we're
and
sorry,
dissected them.
so
Yeah,
it's all good, right?
yeah,
It's like, I don't think so, man. Those aliens ain't from my hood. 'Cause-
yeah, yeah. That was interesting because in a way it was kind of like sympathy for the devil, sympathy for the alien, depending on your
yeah,
perspective.
yeah,
You
and
know,
there is. I'm sorry, Stephen. That's not the way the world works. But it's a great thought, and it's just a movie, so you can have that kind of license.
I have to give him credit though for, not only his body of work in that field particularly, but the fact that he would be trying to disclose something. I have a different take on it completely, which will, as we end this
Yeah.
segment, we'll kind of talk about. But Jesus kind of gives a warning in Matthew 24:24 that false messiahs, false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive. And so we know that the last days, the end times, will be a great age of deception. And I want to say, what an age of deception that perhaps aliens from other planets who are visiting our planet, not like Jerry Lewis, not like Jerry Lewis in the 50s, but, or My Favorite Martian.
That's right.
Yeah. But that they would actually maybe be disguised as something else, a different message for humanity. A great age of deception is coming,
Yeah.
and that these visitors, and I want to say I'm going deep into the subject matter now of fallen angels, the Nephilim, the mighty ones, etc. That they certainly would have a deceptive message for humanity. That would
Oh,
be guised as
absolutely.
something else, that they would be the saviors of humanity. And I want to say the movie kind of portrays that as well, that they're somehow the saviors. We don't know what their message is. We know it's one that they say that we shouldn't fear,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's an ancient message, and but we don't know what that message is. I would say that was kind of one of the cliffhangers of the movie. We don't know what that message is. We don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen next.
And I'm sorry, but due to the movie's construction, we stopped caring. We're just like glad it's over.
Oh my!
I mean, that's they can a good movie, a really good movie that is properly written, carries a certain sense of inertia. When the movie's over, the story continues. Whether it's in your imagination. Some people write a lot of fan books, fan fiction, whatever it is. Uh, you know, uh, Facebook people, of course, they love to cluster and discuss their shows online and whatnot. Reddit too. I mean, it gets a good show when the writer stops has its own inertia and it keeps going. Um, you know, some church nerds would say a good sermon does that too. A good sermon sends people running for their Greek concordance the minute the prayer's over.
How did you feel about the signs and wonders really aspect? A great deception.
Yeah.
Because the people in the movie, one of the reasons why the whistleblower, blows the whistle on Wardex and all of that is because there's a deception that people need to know they need the truth, and the truth shall set you free. That's a biblical view of that.
Oh yeah.
But, he literally takes the material and the evidence and he takes off with it and with a couple of the alien devices.
Yeah, yeah. They seem to make it about the space trial from Space Depot instead of,
Yeah.
it's like the least interesting thing in the movie, and um, that wasn't important enough to do whatever it was he was running from the cops for. It was interesting though because in the opening of the movie they had kidnapped his girlfriend, the ex nun,
Yeah.
and they're like, you have to bring all this stuff, and
That's our
of course,
inclusion of the faith narrative part of
before
it.
he takes the stuff to them as the ransom, he visits his own friends and has everybody making copies of it.
Yeah.
And all I can say is 128 gig, really. But
Um, I want to mention another element that happened in the movie, and that is when Colin Firth he comes under the power of the alien device, and he's really, he's exhibiting godlike powers as a result, and it's weakening his physical body. But I want to say he kind of goes under a kind of transformation. Maybe you want to speak to that.
yeah, he discovers that he can do with alien hardware what the ability that the aliens innately gave to Emily Blunt,
Yeah.
where she doesn't need any hardware, but he does. And that touches off a whole interesting idea of the nature of people, the nature of a person. You know, we have all sorts of canned theology about a triune person of a triune nature, a child of God, etc., etc.
He plays God, basically,
But yeah,
with evil intent
he
to a former nun.
yeah he totally uses the alien device to influence this girl, and that's where he gets blasphemous.
Wow.
The thing is, there is the idea in there, and it's an unsettling nature. Most people like to think, I'm all together,
Yeah.
I'm all together. Okay, there is your essence, the part of you that continues to live after your body dies. Then there's this, what I call the area of operation. And then there's your outer shell, and then there's everything outside of you. Well, the area of operation, there's a huge gap between where your essence stops and your outer shell. And there's a lot of room for area of operation. That's where that's where all the weird stuff takes place. Schizophrenia.
Huh.
A lot of behavioral and mental health problems take place in this region. Um, the guy who gets totally, well, these are non-rated G podcast words, but by his wife, she leads him around and leads him astray, like Solomon's wife, because, well, she's his wife, so it can happen. But
Well, so I want to say it's interesting that, he somewhat becomes corrupted by his power. Not somewhat, he does. He really gets in someone's head because he has the ability to do that. And he basically teleports his image basically through the device to her and basically pretends to be God.
yeah,
And I want to say, they're going to break some of the commandments by killing one of the other,
yeah,
one of the other
yeah, he wants
heroes of
her.
the story.
Yeah,
Kind of interesting to think about that, but I want to say there's a little bit of possession that is taking
exactly.
place with the alien device. And I thought, isn't that interesting that transformation in a negative way?
If you take away the alien hardware, you have a very excellent, what's the word? A very
Demonic
excellent,
possession.
yeah,
Yeah.
a perfect
Yeah.
test case illustration example of possession. This is what happens.
Certainly the person being plagued, the
Yeah,
former nun, that had to be, if you could imagine it for real, it'd be completely traumatic. And I would say that's part of the genre too. There's an old cliche that says, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And
yeah,
I found that interesting that definitely fit that maxiom. That's exactly what happened. And so sometimes we question the thought,
yeah.
does technology make us better, whether it's alien technology, and who really benefits from it? And, you look at our own world, are we really going to benefit from alien technology? Will humanity benefit? Will people suppress it?
Yeah,
Will they
well,
use it for their own devices?
yeah, well, that's the
Greater
thing is that
questions of humanity.
anything that breaks out into the general public, the moneyed people have seen it first. They've had their chance, their opportunity. There's a lot of that going on. Even right now, there are. Uh, how many people have heard the saying, the rich don't do things the normal way? They don't participate in the normal economy. I mean, this for the great unwashed masses. This is a treadmill. Okay, Monday through Friday is work. Then there's the weekend, and then
It's
you
a different
start it
rhythm.
all over again.
Yeah.
And it's a rather pointless adventure
Yeah.
unless you have some context. But it happens every week, and people just go through it, and rat on a treadmill for years and years and years. I mean, I did it for 14 years in this very town
Wow.
until God popped my bubble one day, and I'm like, we're not meant to do this. This is not us. This is not cool. You go to a job where you're it's definitely not a wholesome environment, but you know, you work for the paycheck, you get paid, you go home, you do your weekend. There's probably things you left undone because you were too tired from work. Um, or you're doing work on the weekend like I used to. But
Everybody's got their side hustle. So I think in some ways, maybe some of the greater issues,
yeah,
like moral issues or things like that, they were kind of
hmm
sanitized. And
yeah,
I
well,
felt like it really wasn't, I want to say, wow, that's incredible. But most people live in that world where those people have power, technology, and those kind of things. They really lord it over others. I look at things like Chat GPT and some of the capabilities that we have. The average person doesn't have that capability. You can buy, something to write your software or maybe help you explore,
hmm
money markets or maybe write your term paper. But as far as the big stuff of technology, that's world shaping, that's really applied to you, it's not really something that you're able to absorb. And I look at stuff like that and I'm like, wow, that, you know, the movie kind of sanitizes some of the greater issues of that. You can see it if you take the time to pick it apart. Now, I can imagine there will be people that'll probably look at this movie 2 or 3 times. And it is a good movie, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
say that. But it leaves some questions unanswered. And I want to say, on the spiritual end, it definitely leaves a massive door open. It's like, well, what is the hope, the message, the transcendence? We don't really know what that is. It's only sort of alluded to, a little Hollywood magic, but
Yeah, it was whatever the alien was going to give to humanity would be suddenly, you know, a great benefit. Everybody be happy. There's a lot of people that say things like that. They say 28, the aliens will appear and it will change the nature of countries and the way people relate to each other.
some people said this
I'm
movie had
worrying
to come
about
out
peace.
first.
hmm Um, yeah, I have a hard time like actually trying to factor this one in. Close Encounters was a different story, but if you haven't seen Close Encounters, maybe this is impressive. I don't know.
A little flashback to the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is
It had a cult following, too.
Close Encounters, man. There was it sparked UFO mania.
It was one of my mom's favorite
I
movies,
mean,
actually.
if you were alive and walking around in 1977, it became spaceship time.
Yeah.
You know, Star Wars had just come out. Um, Close Encounters. There's space alien stuff everywhere. That was
E-
the first year you started seeing Halloween costumes. And that were alien oriented. Before that, there were plenty of astronauts and space rockets and things, but there was no focus on aliens until that. There was that TV show. What's it called? Project Blue Book,
yeah.
Project UFO. Um, and people were just fascinated by that too.
I think the Discovery Channel has become the UFO channel now, and Skinwalker Ranch and so many other,
Yeah, yeah. And that whole thing is another. There's a side hustle industry here to
yeah.
be made. The classic uh, replica of the classic scale replica of Rod's Field, complete with the dismembered cow.
So I'm going to kind of get into some of our final, comments, conversations, and questions. And that is, so what do you think would happen in our society if there was a full disclosure of both UAPs, aliens, that, yeah, everything that you saw and everything that you speculated on, oh, it was all true. And by the way, here's the evidence. And by the way, here they are. How do you think humanity would feel about that?
Well, there's people looking for that, people looking for excuses. It would it would definitely tweak things, but um, for a lot of folks, especially today, it's like, well, what difference does it make for me? They have
It's interesting.
these abstractions, but I still got to put gas in my car. I still need to buy food.
I would say the same thing. In the grand scheme of things, it may not matter much. I think most people believe that there's probably some kind of alien life, or
Yeah. Well,
you
there's
know,
there's a bunch of people who feel that they should, well, that the church apparently cannot withstand such a development or disclosure. It's like,
I thought that
no.
was interesting too. That we'd be somehow fragile to that.
Here's the real spoiler. God is sovereign over everything, over every planet, every people, every Zark or whatever they're called. Um, even in a different universe, and all mirror universes, sub universes, and quantum universes. Okay, and it's all his. And if he wants to make 27 Earths with 27 different kinds of whatever talking giraffes and all that, then great. That doesn't change what's going on here with us,
I th-
because God, appeared. He made us our own deal. He didn't put any UFO sub paragraphs in there or disclaimers or anything. He's just, I'm me, you're you. This is your world.
we
Yeah.
didn't really unpack it and we didn't break it down, but the Bible is full of supernatural stories, stories of extraterrestrials,
Yep.
and of transdimensional beings, which is now the new term for the alien. They're transdimensional, which
Hmm.
I mean that's something that has to be unpacked completely. But the Bible is full of stories about that. It never says that we may be alone as human beings. And oddly, it's a paradox, that we appear to be alone as human beings in as vast as the cosmos is, but we are not the only beings that were created. As a
Hmm.
matter of fact, we don't know much about them, but we do know that they're beyond our dimensions. The Bible talks about that, but even physics and even modern speculation about maybe who aliens are, most critics today and most scientists today would agree that if there is such a thing, they may well be beyond our own dimensions, which is kind of interesting to think about that. And again, that was something that was not really talked about. Doesn't really go
Yeah.
into that. It does go into the UFO craft, but yeah, interesting. I agree with you. I don't think that much would change, but it may actually just be a distraction or a great deception, as the Bible says. This may
Yeah.
be something that
Hmm.
would be a distraction, and it certainly was for the few first human beings. There's some kind of special or secret knowledge that we don't possess, that somebody from another space, time, or another kind of being would enlighten us or give us that information. I want to say,
Hmm.
man, that is an old story all the way from the book of Genesis, from our origin.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. There's no provision for the impact of aliens or alien technology, spelled out in Scripture, which means probably we're not going to meet them, because there would be protocols in there about how to treat folks from another planet. And that's the other thing is we have an incredibly improbable existence, and even with the law of averages on our side, finding other people from other Earths would be an issue. I mean, well, it would be a tremendous, like 1 in 2 trillion kind of fluke, especially because they like to point out our location. They say in real estate, location, location, location. Ours bites. We're in a nondescript arm of the Milky Way galaxy, 2/3 of the way out. Our sun is not the biggest sun. It's not even close. We're like the 12th biggest sun that we know of. Um, our planet is very small. It's hidden behind radiation, asteroids, and other things. So, unless you actually knew it was here and you were looking for it, you'd pass it right by. Oh, look at that blue dot. I mean, so people are not going to come here, from another planet and spend the big dollars to make the big CGI show. Um, you know,
Nobody ever talks about the money.
because they
How
got to
much does
know
it
we're
cost an
here
alien
first. And
civilization to come to our planet and
yeah,
hang out with us and or
yeah,
abduct us or take us on rides?
yeah. I mean that could cost them 100,000 quatlus or whatever they
Yeah,
use for money.
it's interesting because as we're talking today, and you mentioned celestial things, we're going to see a sequence of events of celestial. A what is it? A no moon, a asteroid show, one of the best. We're going to see the bright and morning star, which is Venus, light up I guess, the early morning sky or late night sky.
Yeah, it's gonna come around it's right behind the moon. So the moon's setting tonight at it'll
So
set
to be a dark sky.
10 o'clock, 11.
So we have four celestial events that are happening. I don't know that I'd heard that in history we haven't really seen these kind of things. So it's funny that as these things come out and we look at scripture, there'll be signs in the moon, the stars in the heavens, and these are just part of that. We've seen a lot of different things. I've seen more in the last 15 years, more, celestial sky shows, just the big stuff, including eclipses, lunar eclipses, meteorite showers, comets. I've seen more of that in the last 15 or 20 years of my lifetime than I ever did before. And so it's interesting as we look at this, we look at UFOs and UAPs, and we wait for that time when maybe the government will disclose something new about maybe things that they've hidden, that governments and corporations have, maybe benefited from, and technology that we've actually purchased, you know, and not really realized, and maybe that's what it was from. So it'd be interesting to see maybe with this president or maybe future presidents, or maybe the aliens will just disclose themselves. What do you think?
Yeah, that was a theme in the movie too. The aliens are among us, and they
They
walk
are
around
among us.
secretly,
Yeah,
and they're observing our society.
yeah.
And I'm like,
Mike, what's your closing thoughts, brother? It was, I want to say it was a good movie overall, and I
mm,
thought it was interesting. It does leave some things hanging out that I think for the average person who's going to follow, UAPs, UFOs, and it's certainly, in our media today. It's something that people are looking at, but I don't know that we know anymore. And
nope.
those people that do know, for some reason, they are not going to tell us, won't tell us, can't. Um, and so, yeah, it's interesting. The movie gives us another window or another
Mm.
insight into maybe something that we don't see. But
Yeah, there's two things going on here. One, the world will throw anything at you to distract you. Um, if you're a follower of God, you already have seen it. There's tons of distractions, and none of the distractions measure up. The UFO people come and do their thing. That's great, but if they don't, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
yeah,
The final shot is that the movie itself, it's probably not going to happen like that. And the other thing was, he's really good. He's Stephen King levels of opening up disturbing ideas and thoughts about the nature of people. I mean, you saw it previously in some of his movies, but there is simply, if you know your God and you know your scripture, then you can evaluate stuff like this. A movie about UFOs, even a UFO, it's not a problem. And, God's got this.
it's amazing that the real creator of the cosmos, the God of physics, the laws of nature, is way beyond those things. And the God of the Bible is not of this earth. He is way beyond it, so far above it. And he has messages for us too. Just like the aliens in the movies, God has a message for humanity. Man, this is a fun podcast, and I'm usually more optimistic
Mm.
about a movie, and this wasn't bad. It was a great movie. It's certainly one that'll fit well into the narrative of mainstream media and pop culture,
Mm.
and but I think there's probably other things that'll come out, and honestly, there's some great things,
Oh,
in
yeah.
the spiritual Christian world, as we start to look for things of our world. and revelation of maybe, Jesus returning to the planet from someplace beyond time and space. We look at all these things, and it's all part of the time frame, all part of this last days messaging, distraction, and hope as well. The hope of Jesus and his message, you can actually read about it. You don't have to intuit. It won't be implied. It's actually direct. And I want to say that's an incredible thing about Jesus Christ. He's from this planet. He went off this planet, and he's coming back to it as well. And he's the God of time and space. He is more than Doctor Who, more than a fictitious character. He was real, really lived here, really died here, and really rose again. And Mike, I want to thank you again for all your insight. Thank you for the topic and making me see the movie, man, making me spend my money to go
That's
see it.
right.
And but it was a great movie. And I do recommend seeing it and studying this topic, especially biblically. I'll say this: if you liked this content, please like, share, and subscribe. Mike, as always, it's always a pleasure to have you on this side of the microphone,
Thank you for having me.
man.
Alien hand signal.
Alien hand signal. Live long and prosper. Thank you again. Blessings.